Hi, I am Dr. A. Ganesh Raja from Trichy Medical College, and this presentation is based on the 5 randomly selected questions from the level 1 that have been posted in the concept app. The first question: Rajini was suspected as having TB pleural effusion, that is tuberculosis pleural effusion. One of the following tests has little significance in diagnosing his condition. So the question goes like this. This is a case of suspected TB pleural effusion. So we will be doing some test to confirm the diagnosis pleural effusion. One of the following 4 tests has little significance. We have to find out the best answer. The 4 options are ADA, lymphocytes, AFB and LDH. ADA, as we know, stands for adenosine deaminase. Adenosine deaminase is derived from the lymphocytes. So any pleural effusion that is rich in lymphocytes will have elevated ADA. For example, even the effusion due to lymphoma can have increased ADA. In ADA, we have 2 subtypes, that is 1 and 2. Of which 2 is more specific for tuberculosis pleural effusion. So ADA can be done, but the problem is ADA has more of negative predictive value, that is ADA level more than 60 there will be a strong suspicion of tuberculosis, but ADA less than 40 virtually rules out tuberculosis. So ADA has more of negative predictive value. Next, lymphocyte. This lymphocyte, as we know, tuberculosis pleural effusion or lymphocyte rich pleural effusion. Only in the acute tubercular pleurity stage you will be having neutrophil rich fluid, which is very rare in clinical scenarios. Hence the patient will be having lymphocyte predominant pleural effusion. And AFB, what we will think is, since this is a pleural effusion due to tuberculosis etiology, the pleural fluid will have AFB. But the irony is that pleural effusion in tuberculosis is due to type 4 hypersensitivity, that is delayed hypersensitivity, and not due to the entry of the tuberculous organism. Tuberculous organism can be seen only in 5 to 10% of the tuberculosis pleural effusion. That too when the tuberculosis foci is located subpleurally and it gets ruptured and reaches your pleural cavity. So AFB will not give you any idea, though it can be positive in 5 to 10% of patients. This is not routinely done. And LDH, as we know, LDH supports the diagnosis as exudate. So out of these 4, the best option will be AFB. So the best option will be AFB. Pleural effusion in TB is due to type 4 hypersensitivity. It is an allergic reaction, delayed allergic reaction. So AFB, going for an AFB to diagnose pleural effusion is of little significance. Hope you understand. We will go to the second question. This is Ajit, who was diagnosed as having HIV and PT. How to start the treatment for him? So he is a patient who has both the disease, twins, that is HIV and pulmonary tuberculosis. So the options are ATT, that is anti-tuberculosis treatment, and ART, antiretroviral therapy, together. Because you have diagnosed 2 conditions in a single patient, the first option given is you have to start both the treatment together. The next option says ATT first, start anti-tuberculosis therapy first, and third option is ART first, that is antiretroviral therapy. It is called as HART, highly active antiretroviral therapy, and fourth option is none of them. So you have to select the best option among this. Remember, HIV, that is PLWHA, patient living with HIV and AIDS, are immunocompromised. So whenever the patient is immunocompromised, he will not mount an inflammatory response to any of the infective organisms. TB, as we know, is an infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Hence, our body will not, that is, the patient suffering from HIV will not mount an inflammatory response against that organism. So, the clinical manifestations of tuberculosis will be mostly absent. So, here we have to decide which treatment to start first, whether to start both the thing at the same time or one first and later second. So, what the guideline says is that start ATT first. So, if you start ATT first, your anti-tuberculosis drug will start acting on the bacillus, that is acid fast bacillus. Some 2 to 3 weeks later, you can start ART. This is to avoid a condition called as IRIS, IRIS, IRIS. That is inflammatory reconstitution, immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. If you give ART first, the patient's immunity will increase. As the patient's immunity increases, she will mount inflammatory response to the organism residing within him. So the patient will have worsening of the symptoms. Hence, it is always best to start ATT first, followed by ART. So the best option will be start ATT first, because IRIS is the reason. IRIS stands for immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. Coming to the third question. He is Mohanlal, who was operated for duodenal ulcer perforation, and he complains of pain in the incision site. The site where incision was made, the patient has pain. He develops respiratory failure in the post-operative period. Most likely respiratory failure that he will be having is. So the question directly states, a patient develops respiratory failure in the post-op period. What will be the most common type? Respiratory failure, as we know, there are 4 types: type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. Type 1 is due to alveolar flooding. Any condition that causes filling up of the alveoli and interferes with the gaseous exchange will cause type 1 respiratory failure, as in case of pulmonary edema. So this patient will be having hypoxia. Type 2, it is due to hypoventilation. This results in hypoxia as well as hypercapnia. And type 3 is called as perioperative or post-operative respiratory failure. And type 4, it is due to hypoperfusion of the respiratory muscles. So he is a patient who is in the post-operative period and develops respiratory failure. So the most common type that we have to suspect is type 3 respiratory failure. What does type 3 respiratory failure means? Any patient who is in the post-operative period will be having pain, that too when the incision sites are made in the chest or in the abdomen. So in order to avoid the pain, he will be having shallow respirations. Shallow respiration will result in atelectasis of the basal alveoli. So when the alveoli goes in for atelectasis, he will be having respiratory failure during the course of the period. So the best treatment for him will be to minimize his pain using adequate analgesics. So for this question, the best option will be type 3 respiratory failure. This is also called as perioperative respiratory failure. Echo finding in pulmonary embolism. This is the next question. Echo finding in pulmonary embolism. This is one of the simplest questions. So the options are Westermarck sign, Pallas sign, Hampton's sign, Hampton's hump and McConnell sign. All these are signs related to pulmonary embolism. We have to decide which one is the echo finding. So first option is Westermarck sign. Westermarck sign is nothing but focal oligemia. That is, there will be lack of blood flow in a focal region where pulmonary embolism has occurred. This is a radiological finding seen in X-ray and CTs. And Pallas sign, what does it say? That is, enlarged right descending pulmonary artery is called as Pallas sign. Enlarged right descending pulmonary artery. And Hampton's hump. Hampton's hump is a wedge-shaped opacity which is based peripherally. name hump. Remember, it will be like a hump. So a wedge shaped opacity seen in the periphery. McConnell sign. So we are left with only one option, that is McConnell sign. McConnell sign, what does it say? The patient suffering from pulmonary embolism will be having hypokinesia of the right ventricle free wall, whereas his apex will be moving normally. This is called as McConnell sign. Hypokinesia of the right ventricle free wall with the sparing of the right ventricle apex is called as McConnell sign. So the best option will be 4. McConnell sign is an echo finding seen in pulmonary embolism. Coming to the next question. He is a 50-year-old Vimal who is a chronic smoker, diagnosed as having COPD. So smoking related respiratory disease. He was told by his pulmonologist that he has stage 3 disease. So using the classification, his pulmonologist have informed him that he is suffering from stage 3 disease. So one of the treatment gives him mortality benefit. That is, out of the 4 options given below, 3 will give him mortality benefit. That is, it will prolong his survival. But 1 will not give him mortality benefit. You have to choose that one. So the first option is oxygen. We know oxygen is the lifesaver in COPD. So oxygen will not be the option. Next is smoking cessation. Smoking cessation has to be done, and there are certain drugs that are approved by the FDA. Bupropion and varenicline. Lung volume reduction surgery. As the patient develops emphysema, his chest goes in for a barrel shaped. So the patient will not be able to take in adequate tidal volume. So at some point of time, the patient will need lung volume reduction surgery, where the most diseased part are removed and allowing the rest of the lung to expand adequately. So even this treatment will give you mortality benefit. Inhaled beta agonist, that is salbutamol nebulization. Salbutamol nebulization, though we use it frequently, it gives you only symptomatic relief, and this treatment will have side effects in the form of tremor and tachycardia, etc. Sometimes it can cause hypokalemia also in predisposed individuals. So out of these 3, the first 3 gives you mortality benefit: smoking cessation, oxygen therapy, which is also called as LTOT, that is long-term oxygen therapy, and lung volume reduction surgery. These are the 3 treatments that are proved to give mortality benefit in a patient with COPD. So the best option for him will be inhaled beta agonist. It gives you only symptomatic relief. All the best.